o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening to the October meeting of the Hartsville-Prattville County Planning Commission. We'll call this meeting to order. Chuck, would you call the roll, please?
Heather Bennett, Jim Farnum, Peggy Dillon, Mitch Gregory, Arthur Harper. Tom Kerr,
Here.
Rosalie Mahan, here, David Dollar,
Here.
David Thomas,
Here.
Cal Welch.
Here. There's 6 of us here, so we do better. Next is the approval of last month's minutes. You have had these for a while, had a chance to look over them. Anybody noticed any corrections, additions, or anything that needs to be done on those? Have a motion to approve last month's minutes. Do I have a second? We'll sit here. Second. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Just pass. Does anybody have any changes? Any members of the body have any changes or things that needs to be done to the agenda?
I would like to add to the discussion section, the definition of fire protection coming out of codes and zoning. We ran across the fact that we don't have a definition in our zoning, and it's used in a couple of different places on lot sizes.
So there's no definition, the building. What are we on, 2018? Is that what we're on, 2018 building code? There's no fire.
Not that we have found, and Rick went through all our ordinance, both Hartsville and Trousdale, we couldn't find any. It stated, with minimum fire protection, but not what that is.
Just think that it's something as important as fire. I would have thought it would have been in 2018, something that.
Couldn't even find it in the fire marshals. Their section. That they talk about fire protection, but they talk about it from the individual house, not what we're talking about.
Right, do you have any comment on that about fire protection? Is it, you want me to where it's defined for you?
I can go back and do some research and provide some answers on that.
Okay. Why don't you do that, please? And you can always email that to Rosalie, she can get that out to everybody. And we can discuss it tonight. Anybody else have anything?
You do welcome Mr. Harper.
But we would.
He's not on the agenda. He's on the agenda. when we talk to him.
So how do you want to handle this?
Gotta do that in new business, we'll welcome Mr. Harper to the.
Same as you. New business, moves. Sounds good. All right. Anything else for the agenda? All right, we do not have a public hearing. We do not have any old business. We are now down to new business. Arthur, I do want to welcome you on behalf of the other members of the planning commission. We're happy to have you as a member. Smile for the guy there. You'll get a copy of the Biden sometime. I moved down there like I did last Saturday. And there's the pitch.
Major front page.
And you don't even know.
I didn't even make it front page.
You know, it's a slow week. Now that's when it's a slow week. But we do want to welcome you. You have a wealth of knowledge with building and, well, everything. I mean, if there's a jack of all trades around, it's you. And so, on behalf of everybody, welcome, and please take this to heart. Anything that comes up, don't ever hesitate to ask questions, to give your opinion, to question the people that are wanting to do something, because you have a lot more expertise in these areas than I do, and most of the people sitting here. So help us out with that. And again, well. Next on our agenda is we do have a couple of rezonings here. I would like to just say something about these before I call on Dwight. I will be recusing myself from both of these, as this is my family farm. Me, my 3 cousins, and Dwight own this. And he's gonna present this to you. So, Mr. Jewell, if
You don't need to come up there.
you don't mind.
I don't think I need to introduce myself. I think everybody recognizes me all too well. Start with the 4-acre tract that's mine. It all ties together, like Johnny said, it's part of the family farm. We had cut off 2 acres initially, built our home there. There was another 2-acre tract in front of it that Johnny at one time owned that we acquired from his son, from Johnny Key. And that's what comes up with the 4.36 acres. I thought it would make more sense to have that entire tract from road to road and not have that corner remaining as agriculture if we could go the other. And I think there's a possibility that I may want to downsize and build a smaller house on part of my land. So it gives us more flexibility. There's really no immediate intention of doing anything with it unless we're doing something with the rest of the farm. There's some highway frontage that kind of a little point that comes out there that would probably be needed to make some tracks on the farm part. So all these things kind of tie together, I guess. I don't know how else to put it. There's also, I guess that's it on that part, as far as that 4 acres.
Since that is a separate item, let's go ahead. Anybody have any questions for Dwight? He's up there. This is the lot where his house sits, and the land is all right around there. And he is asking for it to be rezoned from A1 to R1. Of course, I don't know, some of y'all may not have been here for rezoning since we have several things, but what we do is we recommend to the county court, so we can do one of 3 things. We can recommend approval for a rezone to the county commission. We can recommend a denial of a rezoning to the county commission, or we can just send it to the county commission with no approval or denial, just send it over. So we have to do one of those 3 things, though. Only the county commission can rezone property. So those are our 3 choices. Again, anybody have any questions for Dwight?
Or, yes,
That little point that comes out there, that's a kind of a road. Will that be? I mean, it's in there, is it?
That actually,
That's
I own that for most of the time. That is actually an old road
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
mean.
But
I've known
it's
for
part,
years.
it is part of Dwight's land. He owns that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be, well.
One of the reasons when I bought it to begin with was I liked that road because it had a good base to it. If I took for a driveway and stuff, and that's the Dwight's kept it that way and use it for a base and that.
Well, I know the signs down there at the,
the main thing is this is used for residential. It's been used for residential. It's all fenced off. We're not using it for any agricultural purpose. You're really bringing the use, the designation in line.
And the county or the state has no authority over that old road in. Okay. Other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll leave that favorable.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to see this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I got all about it. Go ahead.
I'll just read these, comments.
Sure.
That works well. So, just a little bit on the property information. tax map 18, address is 3220 Old Highway 25 West, close to 5 acres. Currently zoned A1, the owner is showing a Philly partnership. Purposes, the applicant requests rezone.
No, that's not right.
That's.
You're down on this next, agenda item,
Okay.
the rezones,
Okay,
Hillview Farm has nothing to do with Mr. Jewell's farm.
okay.
I think we just put the wrong number on there. I think the other one is still fine.
Okay. Well, I just want everybody to understand what,
Sure.
know for sure what.
Okay, I'm sorry, applicant and Dwight Rule.
Yes.
We'll make that adjustment. Applicant request rezoning from A1 agricultural forestry to R1 residential for approximately 5 acre lot. Adopted plans, Old Highway 25 West is identified as 20th Street on the thoroughfare plan. This property is within the Hartsville Water and Sewer Utility District that is not currently accessed public sewer. The planning context, surrounding properties on the south side of Highway 25 West are zoned A1 and two parcels on the north side of Highway 25 North and east of the subject parcel are zoned R1. Residential district R1 for Article 5.041. Due to the remoteness, the absence of necessary urban services, or the continuation of farming or agricultural activities, development of suburban density is undesirable or feasible. These districts are therefore designed to provide suitable areas for low density residential development characterized by urban appearance. Most generally, the residential development will consist of single family detached dwellings and accessory structures. For the district staff to include community facilities, public utilities, and open space which serve specifically the residents of those districts for which are benefited by an open residential environment without creating objectionable or undesirable influences upon such development. It is the express purpose of this resolution to exclude these districts all buildings or other structures and uses having commercial characteristics whether operated for profit or otherwise, except the special exceptions and home occupations shall be considered as not having such characteristics that they otherwise conform to provisions of this resolution. Uses permitted for 5.042B. Uses permitted by right in R1 zoning district include detached single family and duplex dwellings and essential services. Uses permitted through special exception 5.042 paragraph D. Uses allowed through special exception in R1 zoning district include administrative services, community assembly, community education, cultural and recreational services, healthcare facilities, intermediate impact facilities, personal and group care facilities, and religious facilities. Bulk standards. The minimum lot sizes in our districts are as follows: single family with public water and public sewer, 15,000 square feet. With public water but without public wastewater, 1 acre. And then for the duplex with public water and public sewer, 40,000 square feet. With public water but without public wastewater, 17,000 square feet. Proposed area to be rezoned is roughly 5 acres. This will allow for a maximum density of 5 single family lots or 13 duplex lots with public water and without.
Now, the Brian's read his report. Any questions?
Furtherly, I was looking at the front of the application there, and it still has the $100 application fee at the bottom of that.
Yes.
Because we changed that back in the commission changed that back in May and increased that fee.
Yes, I did.
So are we still just collecting the $100 fee?
Since this was listed down at the bottom as the $100 application fee, I honored that, but have now corrected that online because this was printed off online. So from now on, it will be the new fee.
So anybody who had gone online up to this point would have thought it was $100 application for that.
Yes.
Okay, you see that there's. Mr. Jewell shouldn't suffer the cost of that. Any other questions? I'm glad you caught that though. I didn't read down that part.
It just kind of stuck out.
Yeah,
The ball, but looking over it.
you know, things like that, that the county commission pretty much takes care of, I just kind of lose track of, to be honest with you. Anybody have any questions for Brian? Any other questions for Mr. Jewell? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Noller to send this on to the county commission with a
Right,
positive
yeah,
recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, already had one from Al there, so we'll honor his. Second by Mr. Welch. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And I can vote on this, I have nothing, I'm gonna say aye. Any opposed? Motion does pass. Now, next on the agenda is Hillview Farm, which is, Mr. Jewell's gonna speak to it. Mr. Jewell inherited my cousin Martha Joe's share of the farm, which he passed sometime back. Just so you know, the owners are probably listed on it, but it's me. And those of you older enough, like Mr. Nolan, will know Buddy Freeman, Butch Freeman, and Bo Freeman. And Mr. Jewell. So, right?
Okay, what we're trying to do with this is there again, take it to R1 so that we can possibly do some 1 acre tracts. The immediate need is we would like to sell the old house, it's Mark May's house, with 1 acre. There's approximately 3/4 of an acre that's fenced in the yard. We'd have to take a little bit of extra property with that. We were afraid that that would be constituting spot zoning and we just asked for the 1 acre, so we thought we'd just go ahead and do the whole farm. There is a little tract, if you notice, on the north western side across the highway, a little triangular piece that I don't think would make a lot by itself unless we rezone all of it to R1, because I think it's under 3 acres, best I can scale it.
It's where that
No, exactly.
billboard is.
But we feel like at some point in time, the farm will either be tracked up and sold, or to keep it intact as long as we possibly can, we may have to sell small pieces of it occasionally to try to have to generate the funds to maintain it. It's just more and more costly to try to maintain it, fewer and fewer people trying to farm what we can get out of the lease. And without not having the house or income on it, it's gonna be really hard for us to generate the income to keep it intact. Some of the neighbors are interested in the larger tracts at the back. There, I think that, you know, they would probably, might be maintained as farmland at some point in time, but the front and road frontage, hopefully we can sell it in tracts at some point in the future. There's no plans to do that immediately, other than to sell the old house in 1 acre. The limiting factor on this, of course, is gonna be soil area. And, I don't think we're gonna be able to put anywhere near the maximum numbers that the acreage would allow, simply because of that. But we need that design flexibility with where we do have soils, if we ever go to that point. That's basically the reason. I think there's some of us that, brought this up as far as selling part of it. You could knock me over with a feather. I never thought that would happen, but you're talking about possibility of it. We talked about it. We voted as a family, as a group, as the owners to try to pursue this. And, they unanimously asked me to do this.
Where we railroaded and
Yeah.
he and I are the only 2 here. In that position, I didn't feel like I should, do anything with these. And this is tough, I mean, it's a thing, I was born in that house.
This is the Century Farm. This has been.
It is a century farm.
Well over 100 years.
And basically, like the wife, he hit the nail on the head, this is more for future, what might be done. Now, who knows how long the future will be or whatever. Any questions for Mr. Jewell? Brian?
This is the rezoning request from A1 to R1 for 3370 Old Highway 25 West. Property information, tax map 18, parcel 2, 3370 Old Highway 25 West. Plus or minus 144.44 acres, currently zoned A1. This one, the owner is still a farm partnership. The applicant requests rezoning from A1 agricultural forestry to R1 residential for 144 acre lot. The adopted plans, Old Highway 25 West is identified as the Proctor Street on major thoroughfare plan. This property is within the Hartsville, California Water and Sewer Utility District, is not currently access public sewer. For the planning context, much of this is the same as the previous, so you can find all dispenser pretty most of that.
Okay.
But I just will add, the proposed area to be rezoned is roughly 144 acres. This would allow for maximum density of 144 single family lots or 372 duplex lots with public water, no power.
You got any questions for Brian? Discussion?
Like first part is 81 all around.
It is. Well, there's some on the other side of 25, there's some R1.
Yeah.
Where some people have built some houses.
Yeah.
Right there. So it's beginning to be residential's creeping out that way. And then there's right on down beside us is a lot of, a lot of homes.
Yeah.
That have been built.
At 142 at 144 acres, it would be considered spot zone.
Well, that's why we're wanting to, that's the main reason why we're doing it. Like the wife said, we want to cut the house off. That would have been blatant spot zone. And so is a,
Although we have done that multiple times over.
we have,
For the same reasons, us.
but as I should say, the business decision, we all voted to just go ahead and do the other, whether.
We calculated it 3 different ways, Mike and myself, and it's really more like 127 acres. But the deed called for 150 more or less when they took ours off of it, took the road that cut through it off of it. I don't think a lot of that was real accurate, but we looked at it and it's gonna be closer to 130 acres total than it is the 144, but just so you have that knowledge.
I mean, what, anything over 50 acres would be considered spot zone.
Right. It can stand its own zone, as far as the size.
And it's not like this is the first one of these that's come before us. I mean, we've had quite a few farms in the last few years that
Well, we
as
have,
a passing.
Right. and at this point in time, to my knowledge, we have very few huge tracts of land that would be zoned already. So it could make it more attractive to a developer. Who would,
Lewis is up on 141 would be the only line I think of nearby to be similar to sort of the same acreage.
so we had a developer come in here that, could deal with me and my cousins on the wife. That would be so. But it,
God bless them.
that would, but it is one of the few very large parcels that could be, access for something like that. Other questions, comments?
I'd like to make a motion to send this forward with a favorable approval.
Have a motion by David to send this to the county commission with a favorable recommendation. Do I have a second? Second by Shug. Any other discussion or questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Shudder, please know that I recuse myself from voting on this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dwight.
appreciate it.
Good. Now we're down to our discussion items for tonight. First item under discussion was the commercial building guidelines update. I assume that's in your committee, David.
Yes, sir. So this went to, of course, it came out of here, went to codes and zoning. Codes and zoning liked it, sent it on to the full commission. Full commission didn't like it. So I asked them, instead of just shutting it down, like we've been asking multiple times, well, let's make some amendments. And I saw something at the start of before the meeting, in section B, about halfway down that paragraph, it stated, the original stated prohibited wall materials shall not be used, and then just stopped with a period right there. And, we discussed multiple times that we couldn't prohibit any material that was approved. And so as I was looking at that, that just came across to me as maybe a typo or just something that was left off. And so in the amendment that passed, it added on any road frontage exterior, because that was the whole nature of this ordinance. In doing that amendment, it then came up a couple of other things to make it a little more palatable to the full commission. One of those was moving the surface concrete or split face block up to the preferred from the limited. The hard coat or the textured stucco, they wanted that moved up. And that's fine. I mean, that's the Walgreens building, so it made sense for what we already had. They also wanted the aluminum or metal siding moved up from prohibited into limited. So that was passed. All this amendment was done. And also they wanted the industrial taken out. They wanted it just to be for commercial. It's better than nothing at all. So I added that to my amendment also.
Okay.
And so that's the adjustments that have been made. What is before you is how it would have, the corrected version based on that amendment, because after the amendment was passed, then it was sent back by vote back to codes and zoning and planning to, to be just put into black and white.
To actually put the amendments in the ordinance and then bring that back.
Yes, and so while it was in codes and zoning at our last meeting, we were looking at this and Rick brought up the point when he was looking at it, where it said we had it as prohibited materials. And of course, he passed out the section of the code from the state stating you can't do that. He said it gives the appearance that that's what you're doing. And I explained our point of view on it, and he said, I understand, but the wording gives that. So what we did in codes and zoning is by motion, we changed it to preferred road frontage building materials. So it's just the building materials, and that's in all the headers on the list and in the picture designations. So those are the changes that we've made through the commission. I just thought it'd be, if not needed to come, if nothing else, just let y'all know how that's been adjusted since it left here, and that it will be going back this month for a vote.
I think it would be good if we act on it to show the county commission if we do approve or not approve.
Or any more changes that this body would like to adjust.
I actually am extremely, I don't know, happy is the word, that some of our ordinances have just been rejected outright. And I've always, you've heard me say this many times, when we send the county commission something, they're the ones that make the final document. And they made amendments, I'm sure there was some good discussion about them. They changed what they didn't like to what they did. That's the way the process is supposed to work. We're a starting point. And then they, through their discussions and all of that, and then through their voting, come up with a final document. And that's the way the process is supposed to work. And I'm really happy that that's starting to happen. And I hear the mayor made a good talk and everything, and, so, I think this is a very positive step. And,
I'm trying on the commission side to get this process to be what we've been asking for, where we actually do make amendments and just don't
exactly,
send it back here or kill it completely. Regardless of whether it looks messy when we're doing it, that's, to me, that's what the commission's supposed to be doing. We started here, it gets to the full commission, and that's another large body. So that there's as many people having input into it, not just yes or no. Because if the overall idea is warranted and needed, then there might just be some line items that need to be adjusted. And that's still that overall can still be put in place.
and whatever they're the only ones that can pass that. But that gives this body, it gives the Board of Zoning Appeals, it gives the planning office the authority then to put into effect what they passes. That's what it's supposed to be. So I'm very encouraged and very happy that that's what happens. Hopefully, you know, it can continue.
Based on the amount of people who voted for the amendment to pass, I'm hopeful that it will pass its first and second reading as it comes up. All I did was do the adjustments that, there was one other adjustment on the numbering, the section number. That was brought up to my attention in the executive. It was, I don't have the original with me, but it was originally put in section 4, was the numbering on that. And that was because they didn't do the placeholder, and the other ones that we had sent up before, those were killed. We didn't have that section 4.1 to put the 3 in. And so I talking with Rick, talking with Rosalie, we discussed back and forth, and Rick advised that since he's in the middle of trying to clean things up, he would best fit into 3. And so that's the reason for the changing of the section number. It's just to put it in a more useful place, because it's only affecting the commercial. It's not affecting the other zonings. And so he thought it better to be placed in the next section.
Sounds good. Anything else?
Not on this.
Anybody have any questions? David? Anybody have any objections to the, or anything they want to add? Like I said, I think the process is working the way it's supposed to. Again, I don't see a problem with us passing it if we want to, and then gives would it go back to your committee and
No,
then
it'll go on back because it's already been through mine.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know y'all's process for sure. So,
It'll go to county commission.
yeah, and I think it would look good, so we brought it back to the planning commission, they passed all your changes and have agreed with all your changes. Questions, discussion? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to send it back to the county commissioners with the changes from codes and zoning and commission members.
So we're sending it back to the county commission, approving the changes that they made.
Yes.
Second by Mr. Welch. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. I think that's a very, very helpful first step. Fire protection.
So when, I believe it was in agriculturals where Rick ran across it, in our A1, it actually lists when you're doing your lot sizes, it lists as having fire protection as a determining factor of how small a lot can be in the agricultural area. And when he ran across that, then he then looked back through the definitions and looked through both commercial and industrial and couldn't find a definition for what constitutes fire protection. So you have a requirement, but no definition of how to meet that requirement. And so we were looking at that in codes and zoning, and I talked with Tommy McFarland, the head of the water department, and was asking him, so what's the minimum to be able to hook up a fire truck to any of your lines? And he told me 500 gallons per minute on 6-inch line, which is what we have in the subdivision regulation. And that's what we've always kind of gone on with that. But that's not in our ordinance, and those are being separate documents. I'm still curious, and I've got to reach out to Mr. Beller, the county attorney, to see what he recommends. Because since this body does subdivision regulations and the county commission does ordinances, since we have that in ordinance, can we use the definition that we've put in place? Or do we need to have a definition added to the ordinance? And then, is that something that needs to be voted on by the full commission? Or is that something that can just be added in there, just as a definition?
I'm not 100% sure of the correct process.
Exactly. And
Brian, do you have any knowledge of that process?
I'm afraid that's what I probably want to just double check.
Okay, okay. Mr. Jewett?
I'll be glad to address this if y'all
Sure.
don't mind.
No, I was actually gonna call on you.
I was asked this question by Rosalie, a while back. And all I can tell you is what we done previously. I will say that I am a certified fire inspector and still a fire inspector for the county, as well as all of my building certifications, all 12 of them are still current. So I speak from knowledge. As your former building official, fire protection, the definition of it varies depending on the classification of the building. If you're talking about an industrial building or a residential building or a commercial building, it's based on use. I think the primary question you're asking about is residential.
actually, it was A1.
Okay.
That's the only place we can
Okay.
find this listed for.
What we have best determination, looking at fire codes and things. On a residential structure, it is a specified distance from a fire hydrant, a specified time from a fire station, and also you could have a fully sprinkled residential structure. What we've always done in the past, when somebody wanted to do 2 acres, we say, if you fully sprinkle your home, you would meet the definition of fire protection on that home, so therefore you can do 2 acres. So that was the best pulling out of it, but I firmly agree that it needs to be spelled out, it needs to be in the definition. It's just gonna be a multifaceted definition.
So it'd be a different definition for each zone, residential, commercial, industrial.
It would be
Agriculture, is that what we're-
So
more the use of the building, more the use of the structure.
Instead of the zone, okay.
And so, you know, cause you could have you may have many warehouses in an A1 zone. There are certain things, you know, commercial buildings, a church, whatever, that could be in them, so. So the use would dictate that more than the zone.
Okay. Okay.
But I think the initial reason for it was to try to encourage people to build more and develop areas where they had fire hydrants, better fire protection, and to encourage them to use fully sprinkled residential fire sprinkler system.
So what we were looking at and talking with Rick Gregory, this was just a zoning, so it's just referring to the lot size. So we weren't looking at having a sprinkler system on a structure. We weren't even looking at the structure itself. It was more of, does this lot have access to fire protection? And so that's what he's
In an agriculture.
in an agriculture, because the wording for lot size doesn't include fire protection on any of the other zonings. And so his question to us was, well, if you're gonna have it in there, and he understood why it was in there, that we need to come up with a definition. So I'm asking this body for assistance in coming up with a reasonable definition, and then I'll take that to Mr. Beller and see how we intertwine that into our agriculture.
Would that mean that agriculture would be the only zone that has this?
Right now, it's the only one that calls out a smaller lot size with fire protection. None of the other zones call that out, I don't think.
No, they
They
don't.
do not.
You know, he searched
So,
it multiple times.
but 80% of your county is A1.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the biggest part of your county. And, which is primarily residential structures, but in times past, we looked at it 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, 15 minutes from the fire station, or fully clean. Now, if you want to write it that way, or use that as a beginning point, or point of talking about it, that's probably because by default, that's what we've done over the years, even prior to me.
As a fire inspector, is that how would be your recommendation?
I think that that would better be determined by our fire chief and myself in this committee. I think it needs to be a consensus. Cause I think if you
That's actually what I was getting at, it's a starting point.
as a start, I think if you look at other jurisdictions, which I did when Rosalie asked this, it's all over the page. Some may say 500 feet from the fire hydrant, some may say, fully sprinkled, period, but it was an attempt to try to just have better fire protection.
Well, in a rural area, the denser your houses are together, the higher risk of fire spreading to your neighbors. So everyone on the codes and zoning fully understood why we would want to limit that on the smaller lots in Cato or Willard or in some of the more outlying areas. What came out of codes and zoning, our thought was starting the definition with, any property that has access to a 500 gallons per minute and a 6-inch line. Because if they've got that, then there's at least a fire hydrant on that line, more than one. So then that would be a minimum, to not have any gross overreach of government, involved in this. But I think Mr. Jewell's statements of putting in that that exception of, well, if you're gonna set up a sprinkler system, you've got a holding tank that, okay, well, then that kind of takes you into a special spot there. So
Solve your own problem.
exactly, and you're no longer dependent on the 6-inch line or a fire truck coming, you've got your own fire protection installed.
A residential sprinkler system, if you can run a garden hose or flush a toilet, you've got enough water to run a residential sprinkler system.
Which you would have on a regular water line.
In speaking with Jim Carmen, and I spoke with him about the fire protection. Because we have done this and required it when we were approving site plans or not site plans, but preliminary plats and final plats for even minor subdivisions. They needed to be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant. Right, and they had to put one in. So, and that's what he was saying, his definition that he has seen on other legal documents has been, the 500 feet.
So I guess the only thing up to discussion is how much time from response time would you even include that? Because you're referring to a lot.
Well, y'all are discussing, I say y'all, but we as a county court members here, possibility of if a wheel tax comes up, part of that money going to the future, building future fire stations. I know it's discussed. I don't say it's a part of any set plan. I just know it's been discussed. But right now, the only fire station is there on Broadway, across from, I guess that's the sheriff's office now, right up from, across from the restaurant.
Farmer's Harvest.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're in Cato, that's definitely
Yeah.
get there. Or out on the outreaches of 231.
Well, and then your chances of having a 6-inch line in Cato are pretty slim too.
The lines is more the issue. You don't have a lot of 6-inch lines. You have a lot more 4-inch lines than you do 6-inch. And it's a problem. It's a problem for development. It always has been.
And in looking into that side of the discussion of the wheel tax, I've actually found that you actually, having the satellite stations is only gonna get us maybe a 1% discount on homeowners insurance. It's not gonna drop us the way some of the commissioners thought.
I actually thought it
having-
would because they're not manned. though.
Because they're not, and if you don't have a 6-inch line and access to water, the 6-inch line would get you the growth, the large drop in your.
Right, we'd be better off putting money into upgrading our lines than we would.
Your
satellite
I believe water department is trying to replace.
Well, I think they are. I think they're doing it.
Where they can, they're replacing.
And as money becomes available.
Right.
Big grants and things like that. becomes
Like
available.
4 or 6.
Maybe some of Joe's infrastructure money, maybe they'll get some of that.
Yeah, they do have a
stuff like
20-year
that.
plan, and if Ms. Bay was here, she could probably give us some more information on that, but. So that was kind of where codes and zoning was kind of leaning, it's having that 6-inch line requirement definitely as part of the definition. But yeah, I would love to hear this body's comments
What do y'all
on
think,
the
guys?
time response.
I mean, we have people that live all different areas of the county and stuff, so.
I have, so, but there's a hydrant on it.
Just because there's a hybrid, doesn't mean it's fire.
That's right.
We have to look at the color.
Right.
It's red too.
It ain't red.
It's red.
Probably has 30 true fire hydrants in the whole county, and they're all in the city.
I think that's actually a Castanet Springs. fire hydrant.
Are y'all on Cascade Springs?
No, I'm on Hartsville Water because they ran a line down for us. But there's Castanet Springs water up there too. That runs down one road.
As long as the fire, no matter whose it is, as long as the one out there is good
Yeah.
for you.
That was one of the first things my.
Right.
homeowner's insurance.
The common sense would dictate that you just put a 6-inch line everywhere when you put them in.
Mhm.
The problem with that is you don't have enough demand from households on that line. Your water becomes stale. And they're always having to go out there and flush and dump water, waste thousands of gallons of water to get fresh water in there. So a lot of jurisdictions put a fire line that's like a 6-inch line, and then a domestic line that's a smaller line, right side by side in the same ditch, which seems ridiculous, but that's the way they accomplish it.
It's probably cheaper in the long run.
It is.
Until development catches up with the 6-inch line.
Particularly if you've got an area of the county that you want to see developed into commercial or industrial or some high demand use. That's where we need to concentrate putting those larger lines. It's not necessarily for residential. A developer would be crazy to run a 6-inch line 4 miles to develop a subdivision somewhere, when all they gotta do is spend pennies on a foot to put a fire sprinkler system in those houses, if they need to meet the lot requirements. We do have homes in our county that do have home fire sprinkler systems. But, if I were building one today, I absolutely would put one. Wished I had one.
Also talking with Mr. McFarland, a lot of the issue right now is the pressure in the lines because of the different heights of our water towers. And so when they build this new concrete tower, that's supposed to regulate that for us.
You'll have,
It's my understanding that take 3 current towers out of use.
that's correct.
That'll replace
So once again, would we want to, as a body, recommend having the response time as part of the definition? Or are we happy with a minimum definition for a 2-acre, being that you have access to a 6-inch line? And I forgot the other part. Yeah, and
15 minutes response time for
500 foot.
the Fuller Spring.
Yeah.
it. Y'all think?
I don't think the time would need to be put in there right. Maybe the rest of it, maybe, but not time.
Biggest thing with time is we have a volunteer fire department. It's how long is it gonna take the dudes to get to the fire? department, to come to the fire?
Yeah.
Once they get there, that's,
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah. If we change and go to a paid fire department and all that, then yes, we can probably come back.
Is that part of the
Put that in.
definition? Is that just time from the fire station to the residence? Or?
Yeah, I would think it is.
That comes from the insurance industry. That's what they're looking at from the insurance companies as to whether your house has fire protection. They look at the distance to a fire hydrant, the distance from a fire station. So that's where that time comes into play. It doesn't come out of the codes. It's not in the code, it's not in the fire code. It's in the insurance industry.
I think you can add time to it if you want to, for future. It's a, whatever y'all decide.
As I can say from the last EMS subcommittee that I'm on, when the fire chief presented his response times, he was at 9 minutes, was his average response time for the last couple of months is what they're running. They're running 9 minutes.
Anywhere in the county?
And that's their average out. So some might have been 15, some might have been 3,
I put it in there.
but it's a 9-minute response is their average. And
I put it in there.
he's wanting to get it down in the 7 minutes.
I mean, that should,
So I think a 15-minute would cover.
should
the
be,
whole
should cover, yeah, I agree.
So then if it's gonna cover the whole county of 15, there's not a point really putting it in. You just do the water line and whether you're doing in your 500 foot from a fire hydrant.
Okay.
Which would match then our subdivision regulation, which requires 500 foot, in the.
Well, if it match, that would match it up.
Yeah.
We might as well just stay with that. Yes, sir.
One other thing that kind of contributes to this, the materials that we have in our house. The furnishings, the way they're built is much more flammable. It's much higher smoke with this plastic chair than if you have a wooden chair as to how quickly it can ignite. So those times that have been established in times past are getting shorter and shorter because of the materials used. Just bear that in mind. So if 15 has been the standard, you might want to cut it back to 10. Just because of that, if for no other reason. Most people that die in a fire are not killed by the fire. They do not burn to death. They're killed by the black smoke that's coming off all this plastic in our houses.
Thought is to be a more statement in the definition. You could have a 6-inch line or home suppression system. Yes, that would be my thought. Because if you have the home suppression, you don't need the 6-inch line. You already have the water stored and
If we had that in there, it would encourage more people to have a home suppression.
give them an instance where they didn't even think that was an option.
Exactly.
And
Because a lot of people probably don't realize, like, unless you speak to someone like the wife, that if you've got enough water to run your house, you've got enough water for a home suppression system.
It failed here, when we tried to get it into there. You remember that? We tried to get the sprinkler system.
we tried to, I don't know,
This
this,
is the county code.
yeah, the county court shot it down of trying to force people to do it.
Well, it's in the code. The building code is built around, residential building code is built around residential fire sprinklers. The state legislature made it an option to the county legislative body to decide whether to keep them or not. So we opted not to have them, even though, so we had to take them out of the building code and the fire code for residential structures.
Can we have it as an option?
Well, of course.
I didn't know we were.
Oh, yeah, you can always exceed the code.
Yeah.
If you build a house to the bare level of the code, you got a pretty sorry house. You're wanting to try to exceed it as much as you can in places.
I thought that's what we were talking about. Yeah, then there's an option.
As an option.
But this is in the zoning. This has nothing to do right now with building code, other than the fact that it's not mandated in there.
So my understanding is talking with Rick, we have to look at this as, you know, no structure on the property. Because any structure could be put, you know, that can legally be put on an A1 property. So what's the minimum for the property to have fire protection? And so that's kind of what I kept coming back to. I think having the sprinkler option in there as a board, I think could spur some thought in the.
I would like to see that at least as encouraging.
Exactly. I hadn't even, in our discussions, we hadn't even considered that because we weren't looking at the structure side, but I think as a board, I think it's a great idea. And so that just leaves us back to the fire hydrant and the 6-inch line. As long as the 6-inch line has the 500 gallons per minute, that.
I think you've answered your question.
Okay. So do you,
Yeah, I mean, I did, yeah.
I think that's more than reasonable.
You want a motion on that, David?
it would be helpful. That
Okay.
way, if there's something on the minutes that we can reference.
Okay.
We're doing this.
So we, asking for a motion to add to add a definition of fire protection. What were those numbers again? 500 gallon flow
On a 6-inch
on
line,
a 6-inch line
a hydrant within 500.
and a hydrant within 500 feet.
And then we're gonna put or
fire suppression.
fire suppression system.
Sprinkler.
Well, that's fire suppression.
Okay, right. In the,
If they wanted to go with so much as do, you know, foam and CO2, that's on them.
Do I have a motion to that effect? Cal makes a motion that we send this to the county commission. To approve as a definition for our ordinances. Do I have a second? Second, that's shut. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass. Sir, did you have something to bring up?
No, I just want this in, I've never been on the, cause I live down past, where the rezoning. I live down past, I just want to listen in on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I live down past there on Boca Road. So I can get it from
Okay. Well, if you have any questions about it, you've got two of the owners.
there. Yeah, I just listen.
Well, I just wanted to make sure if you had something,
Yeah, well,
we'd love to hear from you.
I'm just not crazy about all, if it's gonna be a bunch of houses in there, that's all I was curious about.
Yeah.
You know, I like our small town, but I don't want to be an house around here, but I drive back and forth through every day.
I understand.
That's what I just,
Believe me, most of the ones, the owners of that agree with you.
yeah.
Unless,
That's all I was. curious.
Mr. Moneybags comes along.
Yeah.
You always have to have the unless.
That's true,
got it.
that's true.
Big bucket
That's-
now.
There's always the exception.
Yeah.
Anything else to come before the planning commission tonight?
Well, I've got an update on the building statistics for the planning office.
It has been pretty slow. This is the first time we've had any new business in what? 3 months, 4 months? Rosalie, is there anything on the horizon you need to make us aware of or, I mean, I'm not asking for anything, not sure, but anything
Sure.
we need to be contemplating,
As far as
anything, just anything.
there's been some discussion about, a few subdivisions, they've been calling on the phone, asking what. What is the process, of course. The sketch plat, the preliminary plat, and then the final plat, I've given that information. A lot of people have been asking about Dollar Tree, when is that gonna start?
When is that?
It's kind of been month, it's been quiet, so I'm not really sure, I need to check back up with them and find out. Because I was really wanting to get Christmas items.
Yeah.
It's- There we go.
Did Dollar Tree get everything approved through BZA?
Yes, they did. Everything's been
I
approved
believe that.
They've got the lot
At
cleaned.
least a couple of
They
months.
got it all cleaned up,
several months.
around back there, and it's all clean.
I remember when they talked about it, they said that construction, once they get the land work done, the construction itself would take very long,
Mhm.
but. I don't know what's holding, could be the economy, interest rate, I don't.
Do we know anything about the gas station out on, that's half constructed at the forward?
Yes, they, had some difficulties with the, contractors that they had, and so they've now switched contractors, renewed their permit, and they are full steam ahead. Should be done within several months.
So we had to change contract.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Did you bring up that about the signs,
The billboard
bill
signs
sign, yeah?
and, going for looking to possibly do a variance. There's two different, applications for billboards that, our ordinances don't quite have it defined as in what does this look like? Three-sided billboards and then the two-sided billboard. Their total square foot exceeds what we have in our ordinance, so they'll be going through the BCA for a variance.
That may be something with a couple coming that we need to look at. Modern billboards are probably something that was, when we discussed that, one in our way of thinking. And a lot of our electrical now, they change, you know, and so that may be something you need to,
What Ron Eric says is they're pretty, they're old, been there forever.
Yeah, and the luminosity, the brightness of it is, some of them are
right.
pretty distracting, so we might need to put some structure in that.
That was something that was discussed at Codes and Zoning, this month, was the digital sign at Keller's. You know, I'm sure that when he put that up, he had no intention of trying to distract drivers, but that is a bright sign when you top the hill from the doorway at night. Depending on what images are being shown at the time. And so just maybe looking at limiting how bright signs can be at night might be something that we have to consider. Especially when you're talking about, you know, huge billboards, having 2 or 3 on the same spot, and that could
I would just like to
be a below you. See
cry and goes and over the city.
Yeah,
So, looking at the planning office, I put on here, what we did last fiscal year, what we brought in total collected. The building permits that were collected was $217,061. The adequate facilities and development tax was $162,050. Total collected $379,000 with 111 versus the budget amount for the fiscal year of 2021 to 2022. And now we have the completed 2022 to 2023. The last time we saw this was just up and through April. So now we've completed the whole fiscal year. And, you know, people were saying, well, you know, things are really slowing down. Things are really slowing down. If you look at what we brought in last fiscal year, it's really not that much less at all. Total collected $377,014. Now, I know we have a lot of new people on the planning commission, so what does a building permit entail? Well, building permits can be for homes, either stick built or mobile homes that are put onto a piece of property. Building permits also include commercial builds or renovations, accessory structure, being garages, barns, pools, sheds, shops. Those all require a building permit. And then if you do a demo, you need to get a building permit for that as well. So that is what goes into the figures for the building permits. Now for the adequate facilities tax, basically that is just for new homes that are coming into the county. That money goes to the various things. It goes to the general fund, and you guys are probably more aware, those that are on the county commission, where that goes in the line items. What does it help with? Well, it helps with the school systems and what else? Infrastructure.
actually, it just goes straight to the general fund and it's distributed
all right, so general fund, I think it used to, right? Back in the day,
Oh, originally, when it passed, it went to school debt service.
there we go.
Then there wasn't any debt service with the school, so they just, one year just took it off.
So, because, you know, I like numbers, and so I was looking at this, well, why is it that the adequate facilities tax is so much less than the building permit fees? Well, that's because it's only for the new homes that you get the adequate facilities tax. Now, every month, we have to report, building permits that are pulled for new homes. Any type of residential structure, and this goes to the US Census Bureau. So just looking at this year, well, in July, 10 single-family housing units were pulled and 1 3-housing unit was pulled. So that a triplex was pulled. Okay, in August, 11. In September, 18. That's not decreasing. That's increasing. Now, this time last year, because last year was a real bumper year for building permits. Last year in July, it was only 4 single-family housing, but 3 of the 12 housing units, so, you know, 3 apartment buildings. In August, only 8. In September, only 8. So this figures last year a lot less than what we have this year. So it's been a very busy year for the building industry here in our county. All of the different subdivisions that we had approved, a lot of those are pulling their building permits and getting them done. Those on Templo Road, they're getting ready for their final building inspection. Those on Bass Road, most of those have already pulled their building permit, all the footers are done. Now they're starting that process for the framing inspections. And so a lot of these are starting to come to fruition. Now, there has been some talk, you know, what about Sulphur College? What's happening with that? Well, that's come to a standstill. We haven't heard any more about them doing the final. They were approved for their final plat, but they haven't recorded it. Okay, so that puts them at a different stage of the clock ticking for how long they have for vesting rights. Melrose Place, you know, they've gotten their final plat approved. That has been recorded, but they haven't pulled any permits yet. So it still could kick up and have a bunch of building permits coming in. What questions might you have?
Well, Rosalie, I can't believe that these numbers are correct, because I've sat through numerous county commission meetings being told that all these regulations that we've been pushing through from planning would slow all this growth down, and these numbers couldn't be right, that we're still having more growth even with the regulations.
I'm gonna take this page, we look at the next county.
I'll bring that to this one. Giving them an update on what's happening in the.
Because looking at these numbers, I mean, we're almost doubling what we did last year, this year, even with those rates.
Yes. Now, what does this mean for the county? Well, if you're having more houses coming in, and these houses are selling, a lot of them are not remaining vacant. They are being sold. People are moving into them. We have a lot more population in the county, which means there's a lot more property taxes that are going to be coming in. There's going to be more funding available for us. And we have a really eclectic group of people in the county, which is nice.
I wish we had more citizens like this gentleman who come here and see what's going on. And, you know, that helps us when we get their opinions and things like that, to see what can be done or needs to be done, anything like that. But we're here to serve the public. We need input. Anything else?
That's it.
You know, it just makes us think sometimes, you know, whatever someone happens to not agree with could be classified as government. no matter what it is. One person's government overreach with another person's, standard, or necessity.
More freedom if you want.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the license plates don't tread on leaves or out, so generally, if you're not treading on somebody, somebody's treading on you. They're a lot of the ones doing the treading. Anything else to come before the planning commission? Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Before we adjourn, since, Heather has joined us.
We'll make it right off.
Thank you for coming.
With the water department's 20-year plan, what are we looking as far as 6-inch lines throughout the whole?
For the water, not the sewer, right? The water department is in the process of. But I'll, how about I post it on there's some random items.
What we were talking about was fire protection. We needed to come up with a definition tonight for that, and the 6-inch line is a big part of our definition for that.
And that would greatly reduce, home insurance costs for the individuals out in those counties too. I'm finding out a lot more than just having a satellite station would reduce. So it's something also I'd like to, as the commission is looking at the wheel tax and talking about putting a portion of that wheel tax money towards extending our fire protection, maybe we need to put it more towards helping get 6-inch lines put in place than we do the other.
You know, the water. Heather, am I still correct in that? Because I sat on the water board for 9 years when it was a city council person. The water department is an enterprise fund.
Yes, sir.
It can't take tax money. It has to fund itself. And of course, you get grants sometimes, but they can't take tax money from the county commission. I didn't-
And vice versa.
I wasn't aware.
You have separate, there's an enterprise fund, used to be, I'm assuming is that what, city water, rural water? Sewer. Well, it's still that way.
But the best we can do as a commission is the satellites to go along with the 6-inch lines being put in.
Well, the 6-inch lines are the most important thing. So we can work around. Anything that we can do countywide, individual wide to help the county water department get these grants or anything like that is the quickest way to solve that issue. If there
At the
is. any.
tail end of this conversation,
Yeah.
I'll ask for a briefing later.
All right, anything else to come before the planning commission tonight? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Yes, well,
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that, but Lisa made one.
we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody for coming.